G of t equals tangent pi over 2t. Write an equation that gives all vertical asymptotes of g of t. All right, so first things first, why are there vertical asymptotes? Well, tangent is the same as sine over cosine, right? So it's like sine t over cosine t, which means there's going to be times where cosine t equals 0, and you're not allowed to have 0 in the denominator, so that's where the vertical asymptotes come into play. Now, before we try to figure out the pi over 2t part, let's try to understand what a regular tangent function looks like. Okay, tangent, when graphed, looks something like this. Okay, it goes through the origin and has this weird curve-looking thing, and then it repeats itself, and then it repeats itself, and blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah. Now, here is where we have our vertical asymptotes. Okay, there is where we have our vertical asymptotes. Our vertical asymptotes for tangent occur at negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. Okay, so the period of a regular tangent function is pi. Okay, so the period here is pi because negative 2 or negative pi over 2 to regular pi over 2 is pi. Now the difference between this guy, which I wrote out to be the regular tangent function, versus this guy is the fact that you have pi over 2 attached to your variable. The way you calculate the period for a tangent function, which is different from sine and cosine, is the period of a tangent function is pi over your frequency. So pi over 2. All right. And the way I find the period here is I multiply the top and the bottom by the reciprocal of the bottom, which is u. So multiply u by 2 over pi. So the period here is 2. The period here is regular 2 because these cross out. Okay, so now what's going to happen? Now what's going to happen is I have a graph that looks like this, right? And since everything's centered, if the period is 2, the horizontal asymptotes are now going to exist at negative 1 and positive 1. And then when it repeats itself, it goes through 2, and you're going to still have horizontal asymptotes at 1 and then 3 now. So it looks like the horizontal asymptotes are every odd number. So how do I write an equation for a vertical line through every odd number? X equals is a vertical line. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say 2k, because what that does is gives me every other, and then if I minus 1, it makes it odd. So if I say let k equal 0, then I get 0 minus 1, so x is negative 1. Let k equal 1. 2 times 1 is 2 minus 1, so 1. So it works out. But I also have to say that k is every integer. So I'll say for every integer k, as I'm running into my other picture there. Not the prettiest problem that I've ever done, but we answered it. So that is an equation that gives all vertical asymptotes for g of t.